Listen guys, Lewis Hamilton just won his first race in Ferrari Red, and everyone is talking about the new floor, the new front wing, the 8-part upgrade package Ferrari dropped in Barcelona. But the thing that actually unlocked this car, it didn't even appear on the official upgrade list. Ferrari slipped in a new set of rear wheel rims from BBS, and nobody outside the paddock noticed. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what those rims do, why the FIA almost had a problem with them, and why this detail might be the key to Ferrari actually fighting for a title this year. Stay here. The problem Ferrari was trying to solve. To understand why those rims matter, you have to go back to what was wrong with this car. Hamilton arrived at Ferrari for the 2026 season, and the SF26 was giving him a specific, consistent nightmare: rear instability. Not a small niggle, a chronic problem. Every time he pushed hard into a corner, the back end would get snappy on him. Jolyon Palmer called Ferrari the biggest disappointment in F1 this season, and honestly, that was fair. He hadn't won a race since the 2024 Belgian Grand Prix, 686 days before Barcelona. And the reason wasn't pace. Ferrari had pace. The reason was that rear tyre degradation was eating the SF26 alive every time track temperatures climbed. Barcelona's asphalt hit 52 degrees Celsius on race day. 52. On a surface that hot, if your rear tyres are even slightly over their thermal window, your lap times collapse, your grip disappears, and you start sliding, which heats the tyre further, which causes more sliding. It's a death spiral, and Ferrari needed to break it. The upgrade package and the hidden detail. So Ferrari came to Barcelona with 8 listed upgrades: new front wing, new nose cone, new side pods, revised floor, engine cover, rear diffuser, one massive coherent package. Toto Wolff looked at it after qualifying and called it a monster upgrade. That's not a word Toto throws around. And Hamilton qualified second, just 0.064 seconds off pole. At a circuit that exposes performance gaps with brutal honesty, that gap to Mercedes was almost nothing. But here is where it gets interesting. Buried inside all of that, Ferrari introduced a 9th upgrade that didn't appear on the official list at all, because under 2026 FIA regulations, teams don't have to declare new wheel rim specifications as formal upgrade components. Ferrari had been working quietly with BBS Japan on a completely redesigned rear rim, forged magnesium, internal ventilation channels built into the structure, precision slits in the wheel covers that push braking heat outward in a controlled direction. Not inward toward the tyre, outward, away from the rubber. That distinction is everything. Why the FIA was watching closely. Now, before I tell you what those rims actually do on track, there's a legal dimension here that most channels completely missed. FIA regulations are specific. Teams can design wheel rims however they want, but they cannot engineer a rim that functions as a deliberate heat exchange system. You can't turn a wheel into a disguised radiator. The regulation exists because if you could, you'd be adding a cooling device to a regulated part of the car in a way that would be impossible to police fairly. Ferrari knew this, so the question being asked in the paddock was, are these rims primarily a thermal management tool, or are they primarily aerodynamic? The honest technical answer is both, but in the right order. The primary function is aerodynamic. Better airflow control around the rear wheel cleans up the wake that feeds into the diffuser. Improved diffuser flow means more rear downforce. More rear downforce means the car is more stable. And a more stable rear end means the tyres run cooler as a secondary effect. Ferrari didn't build a heat exchanger. They built a better aero component that happens to manage heat. The FIA has no issue with that. What it meant for Hamilton on race day. And that's not even the part that should have you leaning forward, because what happened to those rear tyres in the actual race is where this story locks in. Hamilton ran a three-stop strategy in Barcelona. Aggressive, high tyre consumption by design. Mercedes ran two stops and relied on Russell managing his rubber. In conditions where the asphalt was at 52 degrees, Ferrari trusted that Hamilton's rear tyres would hold. Every stint, they held. He crossed the line 19.5 seconds ahead of Russell. That margin doesn't happen on strategy alone. Pirelli had flagged before the race that thermal degradation could decide the result, and Ferrari had specifically engineered a solution for exactly that scenario. The BBS rims were keeping the rear Pirellis inside their optimal pressure window. Unchecked heat in those conditions causes the contact patch to shrink, grip to drop, degradation to accelerate. Ferrari's rims were isolating the brake heat before it could reach the rubber, and Hamilton could feel it. He pushed when others were managing. That's the race you watched. Where this takes the championship. Here's the bigger picture. Before Barcelona, Kimi Antonelli had won 5 consecutive races. 5. His championship lead was 66 points. Ferrari were not in the conversation. Hamilton's best results before Spain were 2 second-place finishes in Canada and Monaco. And then Barcelona happened. Hamilton won. Antonelli retired with a mechanical failure 4 laps from the end, and suddenly the gap is 41 points. 15 races left. Ferrari's development pipeline is not finished. The team tested a new rear suspension at Mugello, a revision that broadens the car's setup window, making it more adaptable across different circuits and weather conditions. They plan to run it at Spa and Hungary. Their wind tunnel is now dedicated entirely to 2026 development, and Loic Serra's engineering team has structured the SF26 specifically to absorb upgrades without compatibility issues. Each update stacks cleanly on the last. Barcelona wasn't a peak, it might be a flaw. Data and context layer. Let's put some numbers on this so the picture is complete. After 7 rounds of the 2026 season, the drivers' standings are genuinely compressed. Antonelli leads, Hamilton is second, but Hamilton's Barcelona win and the upgrade momentum mean they're closing. That's how tight 2026 is. Ferrari's new rear suspension is estimated to deliver 0.1 to 0.15 seconds per lap when fully optimized. In a season measured in fractions, that's not an incremental improvement. In a championship this tight, that's a position change every single lap. Ferrari came to Barcelona with 8 official upgrades and 1 hidden one. A new rear rim design that quietly solved the thermal problem that had been strangling Hamilton's race pace all season. Together with the aerodynamic package, it gave him the car he needed to run 19 seconds ahead of Mercedes on race day, cut his championship deficit to 41 points, and make a title that looked impossible suddenly look very real. My opinion? Ferrari are not a dark horse anymore. They are a contender. The question I can't answer yet is whether the rear suspension upgrade at Spa performs the same way it did at Mugello in the heat. If Hamilton is inside P3 at Spa, this championship is wide open. Subscribe to F1 today, because the moment that race ends, I'm breaking it down here.